April 25th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. Welcome to the African History Network show. All right, so we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. So we have a jam-packed show for you today. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, and we have an excerpt of what happened on Roland Martin Unfiltered. There was a story that we talked about there, and we're going to continue the discussion here. Oftentimes we talk about slave lessons in school gone bad, slave lessons in school gone bad. And there was a story out of New York, upstate New York. It's at an elementary school, and a fourth grade class the teacher was using a lesson dealing with slavery, and the fourth grade class was taught that African slaves came to the U.S. by choice. They were taught that African slaves came to the U.S. by choice and worked for a certain number of years to pay off the cost of the trip here. And oftentimes you hear stories about different slave lessons in school gone bad. And this is an example of one, but it's a little more complicated than that. And we've talked about this history before, because we do know that in the 1600s, you had people of African descent coming from England to the U.S., and they were put into indentured servitude. Okay, so we're going to deal with some of this history, because in 1619, codified slave laws didn't exist in any of the 13 colonies in 1619. So we hear about Jamestown, Virginia, Point Comfort, 1619. Well, codified slave laws didn't exist in any of the 13 colonies in 1619. The first colony to have codified slave laws is going to be Massachusetts in 1641. They come to Connecticut in about 1650, come to Virginia in 1660, right about 1660. So the way that many people understand the history is the way we think slavery evolved in this country is largely false. All right, so we're going to deal with some of that history today. Then also we'll talk about the new online course that I have starting up Saturday, May 1st, 2021, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this is a 9-week, 18-hour online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place also. Okay, so you can visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, for more information dealing with that. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register now. It's going to be a fantastic class. Then there was we hear more about reparations. I interviewed Cam Howard from in Cobra. We had him on Sunday before last, and we were talking about the hearing in the House Judiciary Committee dealing with reparations. And we know that H.R. 40 passed out of committee in the House Judiciary Committee and has to go to the full House floor for a vote. Now, it's not clear that they have the 218 votes to pass H.R. 40 in the House. We definitely don't have the 60 votes in the Senate. So it's still an uphill battle. But there was an article from the Griot that I saw that talks about how, despite racial reckoning, state efforts to stall on reparations. Despite racial reckoning, state efforts stall on reparations. The lack of progress reflects the nation's conflicting views on whether reparations to atone for slavery are necessary. And once again, a lot of this has to do with not understanding history, and not understanding that what slavery did in this country was it maldistributed wealth, power, and resources into the hands of Europeans, but also understanding the legacy of slavery. Okay, the Jim Crow segregation, the end of Reconstruction, the African Americans largely being locked out of massive land giveaways, like the Homestead Act of 1862, the Southern Homestead Act of 1866, the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887, largely being locked out of these massive land giveaways, and how understanding housing segregation, all different types of things like this. Okay, understanding how laws and policies negatively impacted African Americans. All right. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is what politics is. All right. And then understanding how this plays into the conditions that African Americans are dealing with today, everything from health disparities to the racial wealth gap, the racial wage gap. All of this is connected. Okay, so we'll talk some about this. Despite racial reckoning, state efforts stall on reparations. Then there was a April 24th, 1877 was the April 24th, 1877 is when the federal troops were moved out of the South. And this is what ended Reconstruction. Federal troops are moved out of the South, April 24th, 1877. So there was we talked about, on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we talked about this one story where the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, I think his name is Mark Robinson, lieutenant governor of North Carolina, he spoke at one of the congressional hearings this past week, and so did Reverend William Barber III. But Lieutenant Governor Robinson talked about how he doesn't like how Democrats are talking about systemic racism and things like this, and the conversation came up about the history of the Republican Party, ending slavery and the civil rights movement, etc. But when they had this conversation, there was some key things in history that they left out that the Republican Party and Republicans were involved in. One of them was ending Reconstruction. See, they talk about, the Republican Party and many Republicans and Black conservatives and Black Republicans, whatever you want to call them, many of them like to talk about the fact that it was the Republicans who helped free the slaves. And Lincoln was a Republican, Harriet Tubman was a Republican, and Frederick Douglass, things like this. But they never want to talk about the Compromise of 1877 and why the Union troops left the South, okay, which ended Reconstruction and ushered in an era of Jim Crow segregation, okay? Then you have Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896 U.S. Supreme Court case. So we're going to talk some about the Union troops being removed out of the South and the Compromise of 1877, because they don't want to have that conversation. And then there was a piece from USA Today that I saw. I've talked about this before. This is from March. 2021, I should say, March 4th, 2021. But it talks about how oftentimes in school, U.S. history class and U.S. history lessons oftentimes traumatize and dehumanize African American students. U.S. history class and U.S. history lessons oftentimes traumatize and dehumanize African American students. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating and empowering and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, relationships, love. Sometimes I skip over relationships. But relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show, and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This helps us stay on the air, keep broadcasting 6 days a week, keep doing the research, pay some of the bills, etc. Okay. Let's see here. We're coming up here on the break. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a quick question or comment. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go-to online source for Kemetic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting our African heritage. Kemeticwear.com is inspired by KemeticScribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at Kemeticwear.com.
910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 25th, 2021, and we are live. Call-in numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. All right. So there was a story that we talked about Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we just talked about it for a little bit, just for a few minutes. But I wanted to expound on that conversation today and give some background information because I went and researched the topic a little bit more. So there was out of upstate New York, there was there was a fourth grade worksheet in Pittsford on colonial history that they're saying is teaching a false history and is highly insensitive. Now, a worksheet used in a Pittsford, New York fourth grade class said, let me back up here. So a worksheet used in the Pittsford fourth grade class lesson on slavery during colonial times is said to be highly insensitive in tone, according to Pittsford Central School District Superintendent of Schools, Michael Pero, P-E-R-O, who apologized in a statement Tuesday. This article is from April 20th, 2021, updated April 21st. Now, the worksheet for the lesson, which was used in the classroom in January 2021, said that slaves agreed to work for colonists in exchange for a trip to America. Slaves agreed to work for colonists in exchange for a trip to America. Now, school superintendent Michael Pero said in a statement that a parent brought this worksheet to the attention of district officials on Tuesday, and it had the worksheet. We're going to bring this up here on the screen share, and we're going to go to clip one here in just a minute, Jalen. If you look here on the screen share, it has part of the lesson. Okay, it says, "Why did slaves come to America?" And then it says, "As an exchange to the trip, as an exchange for the trip to America, African Americans agreed to work for colonists for blank years, but then were kept as slaves." So they have to fill in the blank how many years. And it says, so it's a fill in the blank exercise. Part of this exercise is a fill in the blank exercise. Then it says, "Where did slaves live?" Okay. Then it says, "Lived in small fill in the blank homes on a blank plantation," what have you. What jobs did slaves have? Okay. And it asked them things like worked in, fill in the blank butter, like making butter, churning butter, fill in the blank around the house, doing chores around the house. Now, we've talked about before how there were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. Everything from engineers to basket makers to barrel makers to hemp baggers to furniture makers, barbers. We control the skilled trades. All right. Then it asked the question, who owned slaves? Okay. So this is part of this lesson. It's a fourth grade lesson. All right. Now, Michael Pero, school superintendent, said that the district will reteach this topic, remove the worksheet from students' notebooks, and provide them with the correct factual information, provide them with the correct factual information on this subject. Now, according to district officials, the worksheet was part of one lesson used by a first-year teacher and limited to use in one class. Okay, so it was used by a first-year teacher and limited to use in one class at one school. All right. Now, the worksheet came from an online course called Classroom Nook. All right. I'm not sure if you should use Classroom Nook. I haven't seen everything they had to offer. This right here is problematic what they're offering. Now, Classroom Nook is not a district approved resource for materials. Classroom Nook is not a district approved resource for materials. A statement from Pittsford Central School District Superintendent of Schools, Michael Pirro, states, "It was brought to our attention this morning that in January, a worksheet was used in a fourth grade class lesson on slavery during colonial times. The worksheet, which is attached, was in no way an accurate depiction of slavery during colonial times and was highly insensitive in tone. We immediately met with the staff members involved in this lesson and have taken steps to remedy the situation. This will include a reteaching of the topic of slavery during colonial times and removing this worksheet from student notebooks while providing them with correct, factual information on this subject. Furthermore, we are working with our fourth grade teachers across the district to be sure this worksheet is not being used in any other classrooms." Okay. Michael Pirro went on to say, "I would like to thank the parent who brought this to our attention. We have reached out to them in order to make a full apology for the use of this worksheet. We have also reached out to parents of the entire class to share this error and apologize for it. This situation reinforces the significance and importance of working with our staff with regard to high quality resources, ongoing professional development, and culturally responsive, sustaining educational practices." Culturally responsive, sustaining educational practices. This is something we take seriously, and we are continued to continuous improvement. This is something we take seriously and are continued to continuous improvement. Yeah, that's what he said. Doesn't make any sense. Now, end quote. So a worksheet similar to this one was observed in the Webster Central School District earlier this year. Webster Central School District officials, now this is in New York, people, this is in New York. Webster Central School District officials said in a statement to News 8 out of the New York area on Tuesday, "The worksheet that you are referencing is similar to the one that had been used in some of our classrooms 2 months ago. It was part of an elementary asynchronous assignment about life during colonial times, specifically regarding enslaved people. This worksheet was not part of the district's curriculum, but was used as a supplemental resource." Okay. While teaching about enslaved people is part of the New York State Social Studies standards, the way the assignment was presented did not provide students with a historically accurate understanding of the experiences of men, women, and children who were enslaved in our nation. Okay. The way the assignment was presented did not provide students with a historically accurate understanding of the experiences of men, women, and children who were enslaved in our nation. The task in its original form created confusion for students and minimized the dehumanization that defines slavery. The task in its original form, what'd you say? You say something, Jalen? The task in its original form created confusion for students and minimized the dehumanization that defines slavery. All right, so now a similar worksheet from Classroom Nook went viral in 2019. Classroom Nook then claimed it was meant to be used as a quote-unquote suggested answer key intended to contain example student responses and use them as part of the teaching material. I read a few articles on this. This school district had a problem back in 2019 when, during a Black History Month project, in 2019, the district made headlines after a parent raised similar concerns over a botched Black History Month project in which white men, including former U.S. President Andrew Johnson, were pictured instead of the Black inventors that they were supposed to be celebrating during Black History Month. This is in the same school district. I want to go to this clip here. This is from, I think this is from WROC out of, or actually this is WIVB TV out of Channel 8 out of the upstate New York area that talks about this story. Fourth grade worksheet in Pittsford on colonial slavery teaches false history, highly insensitive in tone. Let's go to clip one, Jalen.
Pittsford Central School District is under fire tonight for a fourth grade worksheet that contained false information about slavery. Kayla Green explains what happened, why school officials are apologizing, and how parents are responding.
Parents tell me this isn't the first time this worksheet has been used locally. They say it was also used in Webster back in February, and the fact that this happened a second time is just insulting. Students in a fourth grade classroom in the Pittsford School District were given this worksheet in January, part of a lesson about slavery in colonial times. It says slaves agreed to work for colonists in exchange for a trip to America and prompts students to list slave jobs. Tiffany Porter is the founder of Being Black in the Burbs.
You can't be teaching kids that Black people came willingly to this country and that we were not forced. And then, it was like we were indentured servants coming up here to work our way off of, whatever debts we had. That's false.
Superintendent of Schools Michael Pirro says in a statement that a parent brought this worksheet to the attention of district officials today. He says the district will reteach the topic, remove the worksheet from students' notebooks, and provide them with the correct information. Antonia Winter says a similar worksheet was handed out to her friend's child in a Webster classroom in February.
The country pretty much was built on the backs of these enslaved people that were dragged here. So that narrative and that piece, kids need to understand, this is not the proper way that story should be told.
The Webster district confirmed a similar worksheet was used, and a spokesperson says it minimized the dehumanization that defines slavery. They say actions to address the situation are ongoing.
These are some things that we want to call out and not in, so people can stop doing it. Because if Webster had said something and spoke up more about it, then perhaps Pittsburgh could have saw and flagged it.
Pittsburgh officials say this was used as part of one lesson by a first-year teacher in only one classroom and in only one of the schools in the district. In Pittsburgh, Kayla Green, News 8.
All right, Kayla, thank you. Superintendent Pirro says they have reached out to the families of children who were given that lesson. In his statement today, he said, quote, "I would like to thank the parents who brought this to our attention. We've reached out to them in order to make a full apology for the use of this worksheet. We have also reached out to parents of the entire class to share this error and apologize for it."
Okay, so that's from WIVB TV Channel 8 out of the upstate New York area, and also WROC TV, the upstate New York area, reported on this as well. So, this is an example of a slave lesson gone wrong, another slave lesson go wrong as well. But it's a complicated history, okay? It's a complicated history. I'm going to reference Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., chapter 2. Just a minute here, okay? And 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment here. And if you have experienced, or your children have experienced, now I call them slave lessons gone wrong, right? I don't know if I'm going to fit, I don't know if I'm going to create a video series or something. Don't steal that name now. But I call them slave lessons gone wrong. But if your children have experienced lessons dealing with history and slavery and things like this that are just are wrong in school, give us a call. Let us know about that also. Now, you hear me oftentimes talk about teaching hard history, American slavery, teaching hard history, American slavery from the Southern Poverty Law Center. And it is a study that, I recommend that people use. You can use it at your, a lot of some students are still at home because of COVID, still being educated remotely. But this is something that teachers can use in the classroom. This is something parents can use to supplement what is being taught in the classroom or what is not being taught in the classroom. So it's from the Southern Poverty Law Center, Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. It's about a 52-page study, a 56-page study. And it documents how the history of slavery is being incorrectly taught in schools all across the country. And then it gives numerous recommendations on how to more correctly teach the history. All right. You can download that from Southern Poverty Law Center, splcenter.org, splcenter.org, and just search for Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. And, I downloaded it and took it to the printer and got it printed up, Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. So if we look at, there's a couple of sources we want to look at here. If we look at a article from USA Today, okay, and this deals with this one here from USA Today. This deals with 1619, 400 years ago, a ship arrived in Virginia bearing human cargo. What happens is that the way slavery evolved in the 13 colonies, the way we think slavery evolved in the 13 colonies, that's not exactly what happened. Okay. The way we think slavery evolved in the 13 colonies, that's not exactly how it evolved. All right. In 1619, codified slave laws didn't even exist in any other 13 colonies. Okay. That's going to evolve over time. So there was one point in this article I wanted to look at. My friend, Dr. Darrell Scott, history professor at Howard University, is quoted in here. But let's look at this right here. Okay. So we're going to pull this up on the screen share. Just 1 second here. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube. All right. So it's laying out this history of Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. And it says, and while some declare that 1619 marked the beginning of slavery in England's American colonies, they are off the mark in at least two ways. First, Africans had been imported as slave labor in the English colony of Bermuda before 1619. Secondly, the status of those 20 and odd Africans from the White Lion pirate ship, is still a matter of contention. Now, Dr. Darrell Scott said, quote, the 1619 story is only important for people who develop within the nation state that becomes known as the United States. Okay, he's a history professor at Howard University. I just talked to him yesterday because I'm setting up an interview with him. And he's also a past president of ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History. He said it's about how you define the history you're telling. He points out that if one were to consider the migration of Africans from about the 15th century, one could also mark arrivals in Spain, Portugal, and Italy, as well as the Arab world. Now, they go on to talk about the status of those 28-odd Africans, because codified slave laws don't exist. They're put into a form of indentured servitude, released after about 3 to 5 years or something like that. Okay. Yes, they were captive, but what we know is chattel slavery doesn't exist in the 13 colonies. Okay. At this time. If we look at, I'm going to go to before the Mayflower here in just a second. If we look at further down in this article, it says other scholars, including Linda Haywood and John Thornton of Boston University, insist that the Africans from the White Lion pirate ship and the Treasurer pirate ship, these are two English pirate ships that come into Virginia in 1619, that these Africans were enslaved by the English and that they had originally been by the Portuguese slave traders before they were taken by pirates. But it's important to note that what we know as slavery in the 13 colonies evolves for a period of time. Okay. It's not a system that existed in 1619 when these Africans came in. And the other thing that gets left out of the story is that, and you can read this article here from USA Today, 1619, 400 years ago, a ship arrived in Virginia bearing human cargo. 1619, 400 years ago, a ship arrived in Virginia bearing human cargo. What's important to note is that you're going to have some people of African descent who come from England during this about a 40-year period of time, from maybe about 1620 into 1660 or so. Some of them are going to come here willingly and enter into indentured servitude. They're released after 3 to 5, 7 years, acquire land, and then some of them will acquire indentured servants, both white and, in some cases, black or African American, however you want to put it, indentured servants. That history exists also. Okay. When you read chapter 2 before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he cites about a 40-year period of time where you're going to have this take place. But then as codified slave laws are being put into place for African people, that indentured servitude is being phased out. And then what we know as slavery is being phased in, but it doesn't hit all the colonies at the same time. Okay. This is something that a lot of people don't understand. So we'll go to the phone lines in just a minute here. In the back of the book Before the Mayflower, he has a list of landmarks and milestones. I'm looking at the 6th edition. Okay. If you look at the first page of it and look at December 1641, he says Massachusetts became the first colony to give statutory recognition to slavery. Other colonies followed. Connecticut in 1650. So Massachusetts in 1641 became the first colony to give statutory recognition to slavery. Other colonies followed. Connecticut in 1650, Virginia in 1661, Maryland in 1663, New York and New Jersey in 1664, South Carolina in 1682, Rhode Island and Pennsylvania in the year 1700, North Carolina in 1715, and Georgia in 1750. The slave laws are hitting different colonies at different times. The way we think all this evolved is not necessarily how this happened. That's why you really have to study the history. That's why chapter 2 is so important. And then if you go back to page, like around page 36, okay, he talks about a large proportion of the first generation of African Americans entered America with Spanish names. For reasons that are not readily apparent, many black males were called Antonio, a name that quickly became Antony or Anthony. Other popular names of the period included Michaela, Michaela, Mingo, Pedro, Francisco, Jabina, Jibina, Maria, etc. Okay, Angola was one of them, and Tony Congo, Kongo. Shortly after their arrival in America, many blacks discarded African and Spanish names and adopted English titles. Thus, with the span of a generation, the black soul moved from Africa to England, to Spain, to America. From the, let's scroll down here. During the next 40 odd years, hundreds of Africans made that extraordinary cultural leap. In 1625, let's see here. Let me go down just a second here. So he talks about how the first ship from Africa arrived at Point Comfort, bringing blacks captured from a Portuguese ship off the coast of Africa. So he's talking about 1619, and these Africans were originally on a Portuguese ship called the San Juan Batista. Okay, the San Juan Batista. And they get hijacked around the Gulf of Mexico by two English pirate ships named the White Lion and the Treasurer. The White Lion and the Treasurer. The White Lion and the Treasurer are going to come into Point Comfort in Virginia in 1619. It's going to be about 20 Africans on the White Lion pirate ship that are going to be traded for food and supplies and water, things like this. And they put the date at August 20th, 1619. Okay. So he goes on to say in the 1630s and 1640s, approximately 160 blacks were imported. By 1649, colonial officials were able to report that, quote, there are in Virginia about 15,000 English, and of Negroes brought there 300 good servants. Okay. But he goes on to talk about how they are put into an indentured servitude status because at this time, codified slave laws don't exist. And then they're released after a certain number of years. Many of them go on to acquire land, different things like this. Okay. So it's a nuanced, complicated history. Yes, the majority of Africans did not come here. The majority of them were not put into an indentured servitude system. I'm not saying that the majority were, but I'm saying you have to understand how that history is going to evolve over a period of time. All right. The way we think slavery evolved in this country is not exactly how it happened. I want to look at page 36 here, and then we're coming up here on the break. This is from chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower. Okay. He talks about how additional evidence of the relatively high status of the first American blacks is to be found in colonial documents, which indicate that they voted and participated in public life. It was not until 1723, in fact, that blacks were denied the right to vote in Virginia. Once again, these different laws are hitting different colonies at the same time, at different times. All this stuff is not hitting the colonies at the same time. Different colonies are going to have different laws. And you had Africans who were voting in like Georgia up until about 17, somewhere around 1715, something like that. You're going to see free African Americans voting, owning land, etc. But you're going to see the laws catch up with them and phase all of that out. So he said, according to Albert E. McKinley, blacks voted in South Carolina until 1701, in North Carolina until 1715, and in Georgia until 1754. Not only did pioneer blacks vote, these early African Americans, not only did pioneer blacks vote, but they also held public office. There was a black surety in York County, Virginia, in the first decades of the 17th century, and a black beadle, B-E-A-D-L-E, a black beadle in Lancaster County, Virginia. Now, this wasn't the majority of African Americans, but you saw this taking place also. He said, nor was this sort of thing confined to Virginia. The first blacks in Massachusetts, they arrived in 1638 on a slave ship called the Desire, which was America's first slave ship. Okay. They were apparently assigned the status of indentured servants. This is 1638 in Massachusetts. Codified slave laws don't come to Massachusetts until 1641. In the book, The Negro in Colonial New England by Lorenzo J. Green, he says that, quote, until almost the end of the 17th century, the records refer to the Negroes as servants, not slaves. Once again, that whole system of slavery is going to evolve in the 13 colonies. For some time, no definite status could be assigned to incoming Negroes. Some were sold for a period of time only, and like the white indentured servants, became free after their indenture. This is page 36 of the 6th edition of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., Chapter 2. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation and Feature Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
With blackbusinesstea.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business, know your numbers, and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. blackbusinesstea.com,
currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com. For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid El Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com.
An AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 25th, 2021, and we are live. 313-778-7600 is the calling number. If you have a quick question or comment, 313-778-7600 is the calling number. If you have a question or comment. So right before the break, we were talking about this story out of upstate New York. It involves a fourth grade lesson dealing with slavery that taught that African slaves came to this country. They were basically saying that African slaves in general were indentured servants that came to this country and worked for a period of time, and they worked in exchange for the trip over here. Okay, but in going deeper into this history, we see that in the early 1600s, it is true, you did have African people who came to this land as indentured servants and then worked for a period of time, worked off their indentured servitude. A lot of them go on to acquire land. But in the early 1600s, in the 13 colonies, you don't have codified slave laws. The first colony to have codified slave laws is going to be Massachusetts in 1641, and these laws are hitting different colonies at different periods of time. So we're going to see the system of what we call slavery. We're going to see it evolve over about around a 40-year period of time or so. Okay, we're going to see it evolve. So the way slavery evolved in the 13 colonies is not exactly how the way we think slavery evolved, or the way that the concept that many of us have. Like, we'll think of maybe roots. Okay, especially if you saw roots when it originally aired in 1977. Okay, well, you're talking about in the 1700s, after the system was well underway. But when we go back to 1619 and see how this whole thing evolves in the 13 colonies, is not the way we think it happened, is not how it exactly happened. Okay. Let's go back to the phone lines quickly. Let's go to Marathon, line 2. Marathon, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Calling from Detroit, 9:10 a.m.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to understand. I heard you interchange both indentured servant and slave. So was that an attempt to kind of clean it up or what?
No, those are two different things. Those are not the same thing.
Okay. Okay, I thought you were saying that they changed it to kind of make it humane or something. No.
The indentured servitude system in the 13 colonies existed before slavery was instituted.
I see.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And then when you read chapter 2, Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he lays out this chronology. In 1619 in Virginia, codified slave laws didn't exist. They didn't exist in any of the 13 colonies in 1619. The first colony to have codified slave laws is going to be Massachusetts in 1641. The laws hit different colonies at different times. The way we think this history happened is not really how it happened.
I see.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm clear.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, everybody. Okay. Thanks for calling, Marathon. Also, check out the article here from USA Today. This is from February 11th, 2019, updated February 18th, 2019. And these statements from Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia got him in hot water. I understood what he was saying, but you have to be, you kind of have to be careful with it. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam slammed for referring to first indentured servants from Africa instead of slaves. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam slammed for referring to first indentured servants from Africa instead of slaves. Now, even though, let's look this. Let me lay this out quickly, and then we'll go back to the phone lines. This is an article here you can read. Okay. He was interviewed by Gayle King on CBS this morning, and this is leading up to, this is February 2019, so it's leading up to August 2019. We know August 2019 was that 400th year anniversary, so there's a lot of commemorations and things like this taking place, right? So he got himself in hot water, and he said that we are now at the 400 year anniversary, just 90 miles from here in 1619, the first indentured servants from Africa landed on our shores in Old Point Comfort. Okay. What we call now Fort Monroe. All right. Gayle King said, also known as slavery. All right. But if you read past the headlines, now this is a little tricky. Okay. If you read past the headlines and look at what he went on to say, he said that he was at, let me scroll down to this. He said, he talked about being at Point Comfort, at Fort Monroe, or what used to be Point Comfort, the site where the first Africans arrived. And let me scroll down to this here so those watching here on the screen share can see. Okay. So here's what Governor Ralph Northam said. He explained that recently he visited Fort Monroe, the site where those first Africans arrived, and was corrected by a historian after he referred to these Africans as enslaved. So Governor Ralph Northam is at this historic site. He referred to these Africans as enslaved, and he said he was corrected by a historian. He said, quote, "A historian advised me that the use of indentured, the term indentured, was more historically accurate," Governor Ralph Northam said in a statement to CBS this morning. "This fact is, he said, the fact is I'm still learning and committed to getting it right." Now, what this goes to deal with is a tricky piece of history. Now, if you call them enslaved in 1619, those 29 Africans, if you call them enslaved, I understand that, even though codified slave laws did not exist in Virginia. The reason why is because they were captured from Angola. And this is what the article goes on to say. They were captured originally by the Portuguese in Angola, and around the Gulf of Mexico, that Portuguese slave ship called the San Juan Batista, it was hijacked by English pirates. And about 50 Africans from the San Juan Batista Portuguese slave ship are going to be put onto two English pirate ships and then come into Point Comfort. So even though in Virginia in 1619, they don't have codified slave laws, those Africans were captured by the Portuguese in Angola. So they're still being held hostage. You see what I'm saying? They're still captured. Okay? So I understand what he was saying, and the historian correcting him, okay, about what was taking place in Virginia in 1619. They were saying they didn't have slavery in 1619 in Virginia. That's true. But those Africans were still captured. They were captured in Angola, originally by the Portuguese. It's a tricky history. Well, it's a nuanced history. Let me say that. It's a nuanced history. Okay. Let's go. We'll post a link here to this article from, you can read the entire one from USA Today. Okay. And then go through and read. If you have, a lot of people have Before the Mayflower at home. It's probably collecting dust. It may be collecting dust on your bookshelf or something like that. Go through and read chapter 2. Because when you read chapter 2, and then if you look in the back of the book at milestones in history, and then start in 1619 with milestones in history, okay, then you start seeing how this whole thing evolved is different than the way we thought it evolved. That's why we have to understand history, because those historical events bring us right up to today. You had African people in early colonial America. You had Africans voting, and all these rights and ownership of land. All this stuff is going to be, all these laws are going to be put in place to subjugate us, to take away our right to vote, take away our right to own land. All that stuff is going to be phased out. If we look at page 40 of the sixth edition of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he talks about how the legal documents in the early 1600s, okay, what we call white people in the 13 colonies, they weren't referred to as white. They were referred to as the English or Englishmen or Christians, okay? It's not going to be to the late 1600s or the late 17th century that the term white is going to be instituted, largely around 1680, 1681. That's going to be after basically something called Bacon's Rebellion of 1675 and 1676. Bacon's Rebellion was a rebellion in Virginia where you had, at this time, you're going to have, so this is later, this is 1675, 1676, so you're going to have those codified slave laws are already going to hit Virginia. They hit Virginia in 1661. This is 1675 and 1676. You have a rebellion between enslaved Africans and white indentured servants, what we call white indentured servants or English indentured servants. They're going to unite because they realized they had a common oppressor. You're going to see the term white for the English largely being used widely after this rebellion, right around 1680, 1681. And it's going to be designed to break up this alliance between enslaved Africans and white indentured servants, because the white indentured servants were just like a step above the enslaved Africans. So they realized that they had a common enemy. So to break up this alliance, you start using this terminology. Okay. So on page 40, he says that of all of the improbable aspects of this situation, the oddest to modern blacks and whites is that white people did not seem to know that they were white. It appears from surviving evidence that the first white colonists had no concept of themselves as white people. The legal documents identify whites as Englishmen and or Christians. The legal documents identify who we call Europeans, who we call white people. It identified them as Englishmen and or Christians. They didn't identify themselves in general as white people. The word white and its burden of arrogance and biological pride developed late in the century. He's talking about late in the 1600s, late in the 17th century, as a direct result of slavery and the organized debasement of blacks. The same point can be made from the other side of the line. For a long time in colonial America, there was no legal name to focus white anxiety. The first blacks were called blackamoors, Moors, Negers, Negers, and Negars, Negars. The word negro, which is a Spanish and Portuguese term for black, it could also mean a black thing. It's a Spanish and Portuguese term. The word negro did not come into general use in Virginia until the latter part of the century, the latter part of the 17th century. So once again, he's saying, wait a second, the first blacks or first Africans were called blackamoors or Moors. This is page 40 of chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. Once again, the way the history actually happened is different than how we think it happened. It's different largely than how we've been taught that it happened. A similar course of development was roughly characteristic of New York, where the black settlement preceded the English and the name New York, because New York was a Dutch colony before it was an English colony. There are records from 1626 identifying 11 blacks, about 5% of the non-Indian population, who were servants of the Dutch West India Company. The Dutch West India Company, which was one of the slave trading companies that were organized and financed by wealthy Europeans to engage in capturing Africans and taking them to the new, what they would call the New World. Okay, it wasn't new to us; we were already there. All right, but taking them to the New World, setting up the plantation system, things like this. All right, but the colony of New York was originally a Dutch colony, and in about 1627, the Africans that are under the control of the Dutch, they're going to be forced to build a wall in that Dutch colony, and that wall is used to ward off the Native Americans and those trying to attack. But that wall is where Wall Street gets its name from. That was in the Dutch colony called New Amsterdam, which becomes an English colony called New York. This is a deep history. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, let's go to Spectre, line 3. Spectre, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Detroit.
Okay, thanks for holding. Thanks for holding. Go ahead with your question or comment.
This whole thing that you're talking about from New York, it just goes to illustrate the fact, in my opinion, that in the public schools, really only mathematics and reading or English should be taught, because the rest of this stuff can be very, very confusing. Apparently, it's confusing to adults, so we can only imagine how confusing it must be to children. And, you know, I'm going to reiterate this. Only English and mathematics should be taught in the public schools. I'm out.
Okay, thanks for calling. All right. What has to happen is there are good resources to use to deal with history. What you're dealing with is you're dealing with, even though we talk about the United States of America, right? You're dealing with 50 individual governments. You're really dealing with 50 individual state governments that have different standards, and then districts can set up certain standards. So there have to be some basic nationwide standards when it comes to education. But once again, the study from the Southern Poverty Law Center, Teaching Hard History of American Slavery, that is a good place to start. Okay, we're coming up here on the break. When we come back, we're going to get into dealing with the end of Reconstruction. I'm going to share a segment from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, we'll talk about 7 eye-opening facts on how Wall Street was built and created by slavery. And this deals with where Wall Street gets its name from also. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners' attempts to sell their businesses for retirement fail. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consultation.
For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al-Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, April 25th, 2021. We're live. So right before the break, we were talking about this story out of upstate New York that dealt with a now I call these slave history lessons gone wrong. Okay, we're gonna replay clip one in just a second here, Jalen. I call them slave history lessons gone wrong, right? Okay, so you had this. Now you I don't know how often you all hear about these. I hear about these slave lessons going wrong kind of frequently. Okay, I study this type of information, and if we look, there was an article from USA Today, mock slave auctions, racist lessons, how U.S. history often traumatizes, dehumanizes Black students. And I have a number of different articles over the years that talk about, especially around African American History Month, around the month of February, how you have these Black History Month lessons that go wrong. Okay. But this one here out of upstate New York, it was in a 4th grade class. And it was only in this one class. It wasn't the entire school. Okay, thank God. But it taught that basically the Africans came here as indentured servants and came here willingly. Okay. It's a very interesting story. Let's go to clip one, Jalen.
The Pittsburgh Central School District is under fire tonight for a 4th grade worksheet that contained false information about slavery. Kayla Green explains what happened, why school officials are apologizing, and how parents are responding.
Parents tell me this isn't the first time this worksheet has been used locally. They say it was also used in Webster back in February, and the fact that this happened a second time is just insulting. Students in a 4th grade classroom in the Pittsburgh School District were given this worksheet in January, part of a lesson about slavery in colonial times. It says slaves agreed to work for colonists in exchange for a trip to America and prompts students to list slave jobs. Tiffany Porter is the founder of Being Black in the Burbs.
You can't be teaching kids that Black people came willingly to this country and that we were not forced. And then, it was like we were indentured servants coming up here to work our way off of, whatever debts we had. That's false.
Superintendent of Schools Michael Pirro says in a statement that a parent brought this worksheet to the attention of district officials today. He says the district will reteach the topic, remove the worksheet from students' notebooks, and provide them with the correct information. Antonia Winter says a similar worksheet was handed out to her friend's child in a Webster classroom in February.
The country pretty much was built on the backs of these enslaved people that were dragged here. So that narrative and that piece, kids need to understand, like, this is not the proper way that story should be told.
The Webster district confirmed a similar worksheet was used, and a spokesperson says it minimized the dehumanization that defines slavery. They say actions to address the situation are ongoing.
These are some things that we want to call out and not in, so people can stop doing it. Because if Webster had said something and spoke up more about it, then perhaps Pittsburgh could have saw and flagged it.
Pittsburgh officials say this was used as part of one lesson by a first-year teacher in only one classroom and in only one of the schools in the district. In Pittsburgh, Kayla Green, News 8.
All right, Kayla, thank you. Superintendent Pirro says they have reached out to the families of children who were given that lesson. In his statement today, he said, quote, "I would like to thank the parent who brought this to our attention. We've reached out to them in order to make a full apology for the use of this worksheet. We have also reached out to parents of the entire class to share this error and apologize for it."
Okay, so that is from WIVB Channel 8 in the upstate New York area. Fourth grade worksheet in Pittsford on colonial slavery, false, highly insensitive in tone. Okay, we're going to post this link here. You can check out this story and others. And there was a incident back in 2019 also where you had a I'm not sure it was another article that I have on this story. It was a Black History Month lesson, another one gone wrong. In 2019, the district made headlines after a parent raised similar concerns over a botched Black History Month project in which white men, including former U.S. President Andrew Johnson, were pictured instead of the Black inventors they were supposed to be celebrating. And, this gets into how some of these lessons, the way they're taught in schools, they can be traumatizing for African-American students, okay? And sometimes you have teachers who really don't know what they're talking about. I had a friend that called me back during February. It was toward the end of February. And they were talking about her daughter is in a suburban school district, okay? And she said that, the children at the time were still going to school remotely. So she's able to see what's going on in her child's class. They're still at home. They were still at home going to school. Online. So she said they were talking about the civil rights movement and the Montgomery Bus Boycott. And the teacher was teaching about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, and there was a student in the class who mentioned Claudette Colvin. Okay, well, Claudette Colvin was at the time she was 15 years old, 15-year-old African-American girl who 9 months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Well, the teacher didn't know who Claudette Colvin was. Okay, so it's like the teacher's like, okay, what was that person's name? The teacher didn't know who Claudette Colvin was. So, my friend is telling me this story about what's happening in her daughter's class, and it's during, African-American History Month. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So once again, a lot of these school districts, I don't know why they don't use the study from the Southern Poverty Law Center, Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. because it gives all types of resources for teachers to use. It makes stuff easy. Okay. So how, they don't know Claudette Colvin and they're teaching from a book. So the student knew it. I think it was like 7th or 8th grade, I think. The child knew it, but the teacher didn't know it. So, okay, I don't know. But anyway, 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so there was in researching this topic, because we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered, but we only had a few minutes to discuss it, so I didn't have a chance to comment on it like I wanted to comment on it. There was another article I saw, and I go to like local news sources for these stories. I go to local news sources in the area that the story took place. That's how you get like the best reporting, because a lot of times the reporting from the national news sources is going to be days behind, and they're citing the local news sources. There was another story from WXXI News out of upstate New York, April 20th, 2021. Pittsford School District apologizes for highly insensitive lesson on slavery. All right. And then when you scroll down to the bottom, it says in 2019, the district made headlines after a parent raised similar concerns over a botched Black History Month project in which white men, including former President Andrew Johnson. Now, Andrew Johnson is going to be the white supremacist that gives a blanket pardon to the Confederacy, the insurrectionists, and gives them back their land. Okay, he's the one that takes the land that was given to former slaves through Special Field Order number 15, known as 40 acres and a mule. Okay, that is approximately 400,000 acres of land, of coastal land of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. All right. He's basically going to give all that land back to the Confederacy. That Andrew Johnson. Okay. These white men were pictured instead of Black inventors that they were supposed to be celebrating during Black History Month. You can read this article that they're citing here for more information. This is from April 25th, 2019. Pittsford Central School District defends response to botched Black History Month project. Pittsford Central School District defends response to botched Black History Month project. Now, this is an incident that took place in the same school district, but back in April 2019. Okay. Well, it took place in February 2019, but it was reported on April 2019. The Pittsford Central District is defending its handling of a Black History Month project that went wrong. WXXI News reached out to the district after a Pittsford parent noticed that what he called egregious errors in an elementary school project intended to honor African American inventors. Dr. Jerome John Giles was picking up his children from their school when he noticed dozens of posters lining the main hallway. Dr. Jerome John Giles said, quote, "They told me the theme of the project was to celebrate 100 Black inventors. They told me the theme of the project was to celebrate 100 Black inventors. But as he walked the hallway, he saw numerous posters with incorrect information. Some had the wrong year or wrong title. Then he saw a string of posters with the names of Black inventors, but the pictures of white men. He saw a string of posters with the names of Black inventors, but the pictures of white men. Dr. John Giles said, to my shock and dismay, there were many displays in that short segment of the wall that showed just egregious errors where it had a clear picture of a Caucasian associated with this name and an invention which was blatantly wrong. It was just shocking. Now, one of the posters had the name of Powell Johnson, inventor of protective eyewear, but the picture was of Andrew Johnson, who, as president of the United States, failed to address racial issues and civil rights after the Civil War. Well, he gave a blanket pardon to the Confederacy because Johnson could sympathize with the Confederacy. Okay, he gave a blanket pardon and gave them back most of their land. Now, historians describe Andrew Johnson as a racist he was, who routinely referred to African Americans as inferior and undeserving of equal rights. He reminds me of Donald Trump. Quote, the idea that this predominantly Caucasian class can walk out thinking that Andrew Johnson, a picture of Andrew Johnson, somehow should be affiliated with Black history is, in a positive perspective, is just not acceptable. Okay, so check out this as well. All right, so this district has had problems in the past. All right. So I'm wondering, okay, did somebody just like Google the names of these people and different pictures pop up? Okay, because like if you Google Denmark Vesey, okay, one of the pictures that pops up of Denmark Vesey is a young Frederick Douglass. And that happened a few years ago. When you had 2015, when you had the massacre at Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in June 2015, Dylan Roth killed 9 African Americans in South Carolina. Well, Denmark Vesey used to preach at that church. Okay. Well, what happened was there was an article written for like MSNBC or NBC. There was an article written, and also there was a video from MSNBC. There was a segment on MSNBC where, in talking about Denmark Vesey, they showed a picture of a young Frederick Douglass. So what happened was when you start Googling Denmark Vesey, because of that story, this picture of Frederick Douglass comes up. And there was an article written by like NBC or MSNBC about this. And I contacted the author, I contacted the writer of the article to let them know, look, the picture that you're using is a young Frederick Douglass. That's not Denmark Vesey. Okay. And I think they said something like, the editor chose that picture. They weren't the one that chose the picture. I was trying to correct it, but I don't think it's been corrected. Okay. But if you Google Denmark Vesey, it'll probably come up with a picture of a young Frederick Douglass. All right. So I'm not sure if people like just Google these names and just grab pictures of people and they ain't know what these people look like or something like this, but that's problematic. All right. I'm going to go back to Before the Mayflower here. And we're going to go to clip 2 in just a minute, Jalen. Page 45 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. Chapter 2. He says, in the fateful 60s of the 17th century. He's talking about the 1660s of the 17th century. Okay. So in the 1660s, the men who ran the colonies, egged on by the slave trading royalists of London, he's talking about in the 13 colonies here in this land, egged on by the royalists of London, made a decision that would lead step by step to the fateful 60s of the 19th century, the 1860s of the 19th century, and the fateful 60s of the 20th century, the 1960s of the 20th century. Okay, this is page 45 of chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. What he's showing you is historical events don't happen in a vacuum. They are the culmination of a sequence of historical events that lead up to a larger event taking place. This is what he's laying out here on page 45. All right. He says that in the fateful 60s of the 17th century, so the 1660s, and that's the 17th century, the men who ran the colonies, the 13 colonies, egged on by the slave trading royalists of London, made a decision that would lead step by step to the fateful 60s of the 19th century, the 1860s of the 19th century, which is the Civil War. 1861 and 1865. And then this would lead to the fateful 60s of the 20th century, okay, the 1960s, the civil rights movement. All that history is connected. Heedless of the consequences, these men decided to base the American economic system on human slavery organized around the distribution of melanin in human skin. Virginia and Maryland led the way, enacting laws in the 1660s that forbade intermarriage and made black slaves for life. So he's talking about chattel slavery being instituted in the colonies of Virginia and Maryland in the 1660s, because they ain't had chattel slavery in the 13 colonies before then. The way this history evolved is not necessarily how we think the history evolved. Under the new dispensation, which was adopted with minor modifications by other colonies, children born of African women were ruled bond or free according to the status of the mother. So if the African woman was enslaved, her children were enslaved. This is the formation of chattel slavery in the 13 colonies, starting with Virginia and Maryland in the 1660s. Thus, white America and black America crossed a great divide, and white America, finding itself on the other side of that divide, found it necessary almost immediately to take two additional steps. The first was the creation of an ideology of racism that justified the subordination of blacks, of African people, because the racism is going to evolve. First of all, the concept of race and racism evolves over about a 300-year period of time. 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, is going to evolve over that period of time. And it continues, and it's going to continue to the 1800s, because you have Dr. Carl von Linnaeus and Dr. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. Dr. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach coins the term Caucasian in 1779. I think it was about 1779. Blumenbach coins the term Caucasian, and you're going to have Dr. Carl von Linnaeus, who's going to stratify humanity into the races. And you're going to have Blumenbach, who does the same thing. Dr. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. Blumenbach was the head of the history department at the University of Göttingen in Germany. And these are going to be two men instrumental in shaping what we know of as a race. Okay, because race didn't always exist. The concept of race didn't always exist. Okay, so read page 45 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. That's chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a crucial chapter, which really lays out this history. Very quickly here, if we look at, we'll go back to the phone lines in just a second. I mentioned this article briefly before the break. This is from AtlantaBlackStar.com. I don't have a lot of time to get into it, but you can check it out yourself. December 30th, 2014, 7 eye-opening facts on how Wall Street was built and created via slavery. 7 eye-opening facts on how Wall Street was built and created via slavery. There's one I want to zoom in on here. Enslaved Africans actually built the wall that gave Wall Street its name. Now, New York City was a Dutch settlement or a Dutch colony known as New Amsterdam in the Dutch colonial province called New Netherland during much of the 17th century. Through the Dutch West India Company, as we just talked about, the Dutch West India Company, the Dutch utilized the labor of enslaved Africans who were brought first to the colony around 1627. Okay, so this colony, New Amsterdam, is going to become the English colony of New York, but first is a Dutch colony, because the Dutch were here involved in slavery. The Spanish were here as well.
In the territory that we call today Georgia and South Carolina, the Spanish were taking Africans into that territory in 1526. 1526. That's 93 years before Jamestown, Virginia, 1619. The Spanish were taking Africans into the territory we call South Carolina and Georgia in 1526. Okay, let's go back to this here. So through the Dutch West India Company, the Dutch utilized the labor of enslaved Africans who were first brought to the colony around 1627. The enslaved Africans built the wall that gives Wall Street its name. The enslaved Africans built the wall that gives Wall Street its name, forming the northern boundary of the New Amsterdam colony that warded off resisting natives, Native Americans, etc., who wanted their land back. So from its creation, the wall was a hedge ensuring the survival of whites and white supremacy. And it's going to be on Wall Street that they're going to trade in, they're going to auction off enslaved Africans on Wall Street. Okay, so read this piece here from AtlantaBlackStar.com. 7 eye-opening facts on how Wall Street was built and created via slavery. This is from December 30th, 2014 from AtlantaBlackStar.com. All right, written by Nick Childs for AtlantaBlackStar.com. Okay. Now, also, if you like this type of, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show and forgot to give you information about it. If you like this type of information, you can register for the online course that I teach starting Saturday, May 1st, 2021, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 9-week, 18-hour online course that I teach. You can watch from around the world. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. We deal with thousands of years of history, starting out in ancient Africa, in the Nile Valley region of Africa, ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, and we deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So this is going to meet on Saturdays. We just had a course that ended this past week. I was doing that class on Tuesdays. And a lot of people said we can't make it on Tuesdays, so we're doing it on Saturday. Saturday's the only day I don't do radio, so Saturday works out better because I'm on radio 6 days a week. And it's challenging I was doing the class Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., then doing radio 11 p.m. till whatever time I stop. So this is going to be Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you scroll down the page, you see information for our radio show here, and you can click here to listen to audio podcasts of our shows. You can click here to read articles that I've written. We have the information here for the class. You click here to register here. It says register here. You can enroll. The class is regularly $130. It's on sale $80. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, everything. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. And then we do the class live. You can ask questions during class through the live text chat. Okay. Now I can't see you. You don't have to worry about, putting on clothes, or you may be in your pajamas, or you don't have to worry about doing your hair or anything like that. I can't see you. You see me. But right. But you can ask questions during the live text chat. And then all the sessions are recorded. So you can go back and watch them over and over again. You have access even after the course is over. As soon as you register, you can watch the course that we just concluded, okay? And that'll get you ready for Saturday, May 1st, 2021, 12 noon to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We posted the link here. It's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. That's Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 9-week, 18-hour online course that I teach that deals with thousands of years of history. It corrects, and we also deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. And the Moors are taking teachings from ancient Africa, from the Nile Valley region of Africa, into Europe
and these teachers are going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages, lead to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You know, all this stuff that we taught Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. This is why I say I wish we had never taught them. All that stuff came back to kick us in the behind. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, when the transatlantic slave trade starts in 1441 with the Portuguese going into Mauritania, a lot of people think this is the first time Europeans came in contact with African people. No, Africans they'd been all throughout Europe for hundreds of years, intermixing into the European population, changing the complexion of Europeans to various extents. And you're going to have conflicts that arise between Africans and Europeans. The transatlantic slave trade is a continuation of those conflicts. The transatlantic slave trade is a continuation of those conflicts. You got to understand the previous hundreds of years of history to understand the transatlantic slave trade taking place and why it happened. Okay, so this is what we do with an online class. I want to go to this last clip. We're going to go to clip 2, Jalen. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. Okay, that was Friday, April 23rd. And we talked about this story out, the lieutenant governor of North Carolina. He's an African-American lieutenant governor, but he's a Republican. He's a Republican that lacks testicular fortitude. He slammed Democrats for insane voting rights efforts, fighting against these 361 voter restriction bills that are being pushed by Republicans. And he said this all has to do with power. Let's go to clip 2, Jalen.
Power.
Hi, I'm Kim Burrell.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne.
Hey, everybody, this is Sherry Shepard. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Fighting Republican voter suppression has been a major issue for a number of years, but especially since the 2020 election when Republicans just lied about the results led by that idiot Donald Trump. Congress has not reauthorized Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, of course. That took place after the Shelby v. Holder decision was gutted Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. And so as a result, states have been doing whatever they want. Thursday, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing called Oversight of the Voting Rights Act, the Evolving Landscape of Voting Discrimination. Reverend Dr. William J. Barber testified on the importance of the Voting Rights Act, while idiotic North Carolina's first black lieutenant governor, Republican Mark Robinson, says he is tired of his, quote, race being used to push a liberal agenda when it comes to voting rights. Now hit play.
Remember, in North Carolina, the law was tried under the courts. The Supreme Court, majority Republican, and the Supreme Court.
This is Reverend William Barber III.
Federal District Court said that what they did after the Shelby decision was a monstrous voter suppression, surgical voter suppression, intentional voter suppression. This is not hyperbole. This is not about semantics. And it's not just about photo ID. They attempted to eliminate same-day registration, pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds out of precinct ballots the first week of early voting, and instituted one of the nation's most stringent photo ID. And we did not have a conversation about it. The courts looked at it under the microscope of the Constitution after the Shelby decision and said, this is surgical. This is intentional racism. That's what the court said, and showed that we need pre-clearance, and there should be no fear of pre-clearance. If you're not discriminating, you would not be afraid of the pre-clearance portion of the voting rights.
Thank you, Reverend. If you could help me understand, was the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution passed and moved by Republicans or Democrats? Right. And was the movement to put your microphone on, sir? That would be Republicans. Was the move for the 64 Civil Rights Act and 65 Voting Rights Act led heavily by Republicans or Democrats? That would be Republicans. And so as we sit here today, and as we're being accused by many of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle of wanting to somehow perpetuate the Jim Crow South, when in fact what we're trying to do is perpetuate laws that you can believe in, that you've so eloquently discussed, do you see any merit in that whatsoever?
Absolutely not. And just if I have a moment just to add something, when you talk about that history is clear. Who stood on which side at every turn in history? It is clear. It's not even in dispute. And it's not in dispute now. What we want is integrity. We don't want power. We want integrity. We want the right thing to be done. We want to encourage citizens to be responsible. We want to have the best election system in the world. In the world. Third world countries, places like India where the poverty rate is staggering. They have to show that finger when they go vote. It's time that we modernize our election system in this country and stop playing all these silly games based on race. And please, stop using me as a black man as your pawn. And yes, I said it. Push your agenda. I'm sick of it. It happened a long time ago in this country, and I'm tired.
Chairman, I would ask that the witness answer the question. His time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, keep watching. We're out of time here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation, WFDF. We're going to keep going. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win Wakanda forever. And stay tuned for the best of Reverend Al Sharpton. We'll talk to you Monday night. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. We're going to continue that clip here. Stand by. How's everybody doing? Let me get that queued up. Okay, we're going to continue with that clip here because we're on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation for the first 2 hours on Sundays. So stand by just a second here. Stand by. Let me get that clip queued up on this end. African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. A current promotion: buy 1 month, get 1 month free. You'll get 200 commercials in 30 days.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go-to online source for Kemetic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting our African heritage. Kemeticwear.com is inspired by KemeticScribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at Kemeticwear.com.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-67.
All right, welcome back to the African History Network show. So African American business owners, email us at TheAHNShow at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAHNShow at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. To find out how to advertise African History Network. If you have a 30-second and 60-second video commercial, you can submit it to us. If you don't have one, we can create one for you. And then also, our shows are in audio podcast format as well on 9 different audio podcast platforms. So people will hear the audio when they listen to the audio podcasts of our shows. We're on Stitcher and Castbox and iTunes, iHeartRadio. They'll also hear the audio version of your commercial as well. Okay, I want to go back to this clip here from Roland Martin and Filter when I was on April 23rd. We were discussing what took place at a House Judiciary Committee hearing this past week. And Reverend William Barber III testified, but also you heard Reverend William Barber III testify, but also North Carolina's Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson testified as well. Now, he is a Republican, Mark Robinson, but he's one that lacks testicular fortitude. Okay. And you heard some of the comments that he made, and he was basically saying that he was tired of the Democrats' insane voting rights efforts and making everything about race. He doesn't want to call out his own party on racism, however. This is what I find interesting. He doesn't want to call out his own party on racism. But let's go back to this clip here. And then you hear Congressman Mr. Roy, asking these questions about the 13th and 14th or 15th Amendment and who voted for the Civil Rights Act of 64, things like that, right? Let's go to this clip.
I agree. They have to show that finger when they go vote. It's time that we modernize our election system in this country and stop playing all these silly games based on race. And please, stop using me as a black man as your pawn. And yes, I said it. Push your agenda. I'm sick of it. It happened a long time ago in this country, and I'm tired.
Chairman, I would ask that the witness answer the question. His time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I should have a unanimous consent request to insert something in the record.
Unanimous consent to insert something in the record.
Consent request.
You've already said that we could enter that in the record. You said it in your opening, Mr. Chairman. What changed?
Johnson, can you hear me?
So we're not going to insert something in the record?
So Republicans can't enter anything in the record? I'm just need clarification.
The chairman doesn't want us to be able to insert stuff in the record?
Maybe in a few minutes, but not right now.
Oh, because when I had my time closing, I didn't want to insert it at the time inserted when I spoke.
Mr. Johnson, we're going to go in proper order. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, this is a great way to run a hearing.
You know what? I really get a kick out of the convenient games being played there, Candace.
Hold on, let me back this up for a second. Because he talked about the 13th, 14th Amendments and all that.
That would be Republicans.
Hold on. This is Mr. Roy asking this question.
And show that we need pre-clearance. And there should be no fear of pre-clearance. If you are not discriminating.
Now, this is Reverend William Barber III talking. Reverend William Barber III.
You would not be afraid of the pre-clearance portion of the voting rights.
Thank you, Reverend.
If you could help me understand, Was the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution passed and moved by Republicans or Democrats? Right. And was the movement to put your microphone on, sir? That would be Republicans. Was the move for the 64 Civil Rights Act and 65 Voting Rights Act led heavily by Republicans or Democrats? That would be Republicans. And so,
okay, so this is Congressman Roy, who's a Republican. Okay, now, you had Southern segregationists who were Democrats that filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act, but most of the Northern Democrats voted for it. And who signed it into law? It was a Democratic president named Lyndon Baines Johnson. Okay. Now, Mr. Roy skips over somebody named Barry Goldwater, who was a Republican who ran for president in 64 and was against the Civil Rights Act of 64 and ran on an anti-civil rights platform. He just skipped over Barry Goldwater. Let's go back to this clip.
So as we sit here today, and as we're being accused by many of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle of wanting to somehow perpetuate the Jim Crow South, when in fact what we're trying to do is perpetuate laws that you can believe in, that you've so eloquently discussed, do you see any merit in that whatsoever?
Absolutely not. And just if I have a moment just to add something, when you talk about that history is clear. Who stood on which side at every turn in history? It is clear. It's not even in dispute. And it's not in dispute now. What we want is integrity. We don't want power. We want integrity. We want the right thing to be done. We want to encourage citizens to be responsible. We want to have the best election system in the world. In the world. Third world countries, places like India, where the poverty rate is staggering, they have to show that finger when they go vote. It's time that we modernize our election system in this country and stop playing all these silly games based on race. And please, stop using me as a black man as your pawn. And yes, I said it. Push your agenda. I'm sick of it. It happened a long time ago in this country, and I'm tired.
Chairman, I would ask that the witness answer the question. His time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I just have a unanimous consent request to insert something in the record.
Unanimous consent to insert something in the record.
Consent request.
You've already said that we could enter that in the record. You said it in your opening, Mr. Chairman. What changed?
Mr. Johnson, can you hear me?
So we're not going to insert something in the record?
Okay, let me go. Let me speed this up.
Mr. Johnson.
Games being played there, Candace. Well, if you look at the history is clear. Republicans love talking about 1865, 66, 67. Mm-hmm. They love talking about 1964, 65, 66, 67, 68. But they don't never want to talk about 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Candace, it's clear. The federal courts ruled that Republicans in North Carolina had a laser light targeting of black voters to keep them from voting. It's no lie when 5 federal courts ruled that Texas's voter ID law was discriminatory against black people and Latinos. And so my deal is you can run Uncle Festa up there, and he rep down by I'm sitting here black. I'm tired of being a pawn. How about not being a pawn?
This is a reminder of the power that black people have, and this is why they are coming undone at the seams. This is why they still sit. They don't want to live in 2021. Because 2021, when you look out your window, looks like you and me, right? And you and I are in the line to go vote. It's very interesting that they are using this time to finally change the laws. All of a sudden, some of these laws have been on the record for 15 years, but as soon as the vote is swayed against them, they decide to change it. Clearly, we are seeing what is going on here. I don't see why it's falling on deaf ears of this man. as you testified. But clearly, we see the pattern, like you said. This is something that we know is getting on their nerves because we have the power, and it's something that we have to continue to fight, or else we're going to append the next voting election.
The only reason they are trying to change the laws, Michael, is because they lost. That's it. I mean, we can sit here and dance around all we want to. That's the only reason. They lost. If they did not, if Ossoff and Warnock had not won Georgia, if Biden and Harris had not won in Georgia, if they had not won in Arizona or Pennsylvania, they would not be trying to change the law. We all know that.
Well, you know, Roland, this is this plays into the Senate Judiciary hearing that took place on Tuesday, when Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana got his behind spanked by Stacey Abrams. Okay, and she broke down what's wrong with Georgia Senate Bill 202. But Mr. Roy in the House of Representatives, he wanted to talk about history, and he wanted Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson to co-sign. But see, Republicans only want to deal with one side of history. They never want to talk about the compromise of 1877, when Republicans conspired with Democrats so that Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican candidate of the 1876 presidential election, could become president. The Republicans agreed to remove the troops out of the Union troops out of the South that were protecting the rights of the newly freed slaves to a certain extent, because that's what the Democrats wanted. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the Lily White movement in 1928, when the Republicans wanted to get Herbert Hoover elected as president. So they appealed to Southern segregationist Democrats in 5 former Confederate states to get them to vote for Herbert Hoover, and he became president. And then Mr. Roy talked about 1964 Civil Rights Act, but he doesn't want to talk about Barry Goldwater of Arizona, who ran for president in 1964, who was a Republican and who was against civil rights. And he doesn't want to talk about the party realignment that took place, because many Southern segregationist Democrats left the Democratic Party, and where'd they go? They went to the Republican Party. You're dealing with a different Republican Party, and you're dealing with a different Democratic Party than you were dealing with before that party realignment. So they don't want to deal with that history. Run that on somebody that doesn't understand history.
But Xavier, the thing here is,
all right,
they don't want to deal with what's happening today, and they don't want to deal with being called out. And the bottom line is, they are specifically targeting Black young voters and others because they're trying to use the law, trying to get rid of drive-in voting, curbside voting, trying to get rid of same-day registration. They are trying all of a sudden, only one ballot drop box in Georgia. Let's not have it outside. Let's move it inside so you can only drop your ballot off when the hour is over. We know the game here. And it's
all right. So you can watch that full show. That's you can watch it on YouTube at Roland Martin on YouTube, or Roland Martin on Facebook. Here's the link to the full show on YouTube. That's from April 23rd, 2021. I'm usually a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Fridays. I also posted here on the thread of the broadcast. Read this. This has some historical significance. Fact-checking Larry Elder's reparations chatter on Fox and Friends. Fact-checking Larry Elder's reparations chatter on Fox and Friends, okay? This is from June 26, 2019. We know that June 19th, 2019, at the you had the congressional hearing for reparations, and we know that Larry Elder, I think, he made an appearance on Fox and Friends June 20th, 2019, and he's against reparations for African Americans. We know the reparations hearing that just took place in the House of Representatives in February. We know he spoke there. I think he spoke at the one June 19th, 2019 also. I know dumbass Burgess Owens did. Who's now in the House of Representatives out of Utah. But if you read this article, it goes through some fact checking. This is from PolitiFact. It goes through fact checking, dispelling the myths. Yes, you have Republicans that own slaves. It talks about the origins of the Ku Klux Klan. No, the Democratic Party did not found the Ku Klux Klan. But it also talks about the party realignment.
But as a percentage of the party, more it talks about the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And it deals with the fact that basically most of the Northern Democrats voted for the 64 Civil Rights Act, but most of the Southern Democrats did not. The Senate bill, the Senate passed the voting rights. I'm sorry, we're looking at the Civil Rights Act of 64. The Senate passed the bill on June 19, 1964, by a margin of 73 to 27, with about 69% of Democrats, 46 yay, 46 yes, and 21 no. 69% of Democrats voted for the Civil Rights Act of 64, and 82% of Republicans voted for it. 27 voted yes, 6 voted no. The Democrats were in the majority of the U.S. Senate. It's only 100 people in the U.S. Senate, okay, voting for the measure on the final passage. So in both chambers of Congress, a greater percentage of Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 than Democrats. That is true, but it was 46 Democrats that voted for it in the Senate. So most of the Northern Democrats voted for it. Most of the Southern ones voted against it. But when we look at Democrats voting for the 64 Civil Rights Act, there was more that voted for it than voted against it. It was 46 that voted yes, Democrats, 21 that voted no. So when you go actually look at the evidence, it's different than a lot of the anecdotes and different than a lot of the assumptions that people will make. You actually go look at the evidence. All right. Okay. Let me see here. All right. So you can read this article here. Fact-checking Larry Elder's reparations chatter on Fox and Friends. That's from PolitiFact. Okay. Lastly, and some of this other stuff we have to get to tomorrow night. April 24th, 1877. April 24th, 1877. The Union troops pull out of the South, ending Reconstruction. This comes from EJI.org, Equal Justice Initiative, April 24th, 1877. There's also a good piece at history.com, official website of the History Channel, that talks about this as well. They have a piece on Reconstruction, okay, and it deals with also what ended Reconstruction. All right, so we're going to talk about this next. Listen to the African History Network show, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners' attempts to sell their businesses for retirement failed. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consult.
All right, welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9 p.m. Radio. African American District on the email us at TheAHNShow at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. TheAHNShow at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Find out how to advertise with the African History Network. Okay, I want to go to this last story quickly here. And this deals with the end of Reconstruction. Okay, April 24th. April 24th, 1877, the Union troops pulled out of the South. Okay, and this ended Reconstruction. There's a article from the Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org, that talks about this. And we posted this on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. So you can follow the Equal Justice Initiative on Facebook. But this deals with April 24th, 1877. Let me flip over to this here. Federal troops leave South ending Reconstruction. Federal troops leave South ending Reconstruction. So on April 24th, 1877, as part of a political compromise that enabled his election, President Rutherford B. Hayes withdrew federal troops from Louisiana, the last federally occupied former Confederate state for 12 years after the Civil War. The withdrawal marked the end of Reconstruction and paved the way for the unrestrained resurgence of white supremacist rule in the South, carrying with it the rapid deterioration of political rights for Black people. The rapid deterioration for political rights of African Americans. Now, in the segment that you heard from the House Judiciary Committee, okay, that took place, and that was I think that was probably on Thursday, April 22nd. So you heard Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson. You heard Congressman Roy. All right. You can also read this article here from newobserver.com. Newobserver.com. It talks about that hearing, talks about the testimony of William Barber III, as well as Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. In speech, Lieutenant Governor Robinson and Reverend Barber question of both presidents from April 22nd, 2021. So I guess but I talked about fair play, but they talk about Indian Reconstruction, talk about that's not a Republican. Well, it is well, that's
All right, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Just a second. Let me try to refresh the screen. Stand by. Stand by.
All right, testing 1 2 3.
Okay,
testing,
now
1, 2,
that I did. I reconnected.
just a second. Let me try to refresh the screen.
Can you all hear? Can you hear me now? All right, can you all hear me? Let me know. All right. Okay, let's continue here. So they didn't want to talk about the end of Reconstruction and what happened in the compromise of 1877. I find that very interesting. When Republicans want to talk about their history and helping African Americans, they just somehow skip over that, and they skip over the Lily White movement in 1928. And the Lily White movement in 1928 was pushing African Americans out of the Republican Party. That's why we went over to the Democratic Party, because we found the Democratic Party, even though we were leery of them, we found them more receptive to our issues and concerns. They were being ignored by the Republican Party, and we were being pushed out of the Republican Party. But on April 24th, 1877, as part of a political compromise that enabled his election, President Rutherford B. Hayes, who was a Republican, withdrew federal troops from Louisiana. Withdrew federal troops from Louisiana, the last federally occupied former Confederate state, just 12 years after the end of the Civil War. The withdrawal marked the end of Reconstruction and paved the way for the unrestrained resurgence of white supremacist rule in the South, carrying with it the rapid deterioration of political rights for Black people. Okay, the Republicans don't want to talk about that at all. I just find that very interesting. Now, after the Confederacy's 1865 defeat in the Civil War, Reconstruction amendments to the U.S. Constitution abolished slavery. The 13th Amendment established the citizenship of formerly enslaved African Americans. That's 14th Amendment, and granted Black people civil rights. Okay, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, including granting African American men the right to vote. The 15th Amendment of 1870. For the Reconstruction period, federal officers and troops remained in southern states, helping to enforce these new rights and administer educational and other programs for the formerly enslaved African people. Now, as a result, African Americans in the South for the first time constituted a community of voters and public officials, landowners, wage earners, and free American citizens. Okay, now you're going to have some African Americans that prior to chattel slavery. Okay, so they need to. This is a nuanced history. They should correct this. Well, you have some southern states, Georgia. It's not exactly correct. The first time Black people in the South for the first time constituted a community of voters and public officials, because they were voting, and you had some public officials, but you had landowners. You had that prior to the 1660s, as we talked about earlier when you read chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower. Before chattel slavery is instituted, when you still have this indentured servitude system, you're going to have African Americans acquiring land, things like this. There's about a 40-year period of time from about 1619 to going into the 1650s or so. You're going to have, there's about a 40-year period of time going into, but the early 1660s, about a 40-year period of time where you're going to have this take place. Now, the federal presence also addressed deadly violence. The federal presence also addressed deadly violence that African Americans faced on a daily basis. Continued support for white supremacy and racial hierarchy meant that slavery in America did not end, it evolved. Continued support for white supremacy and racial hierarchy meant that slavery in America did not end, it evolved. The identities of many white Americans, especially in the South, were grounded in the belief that they were inherently superior to African Americans. Many white people reacted violently to the requirement to treat their former human property as equals and pay for their labor. Plantation owners attacked African Americans simply for claiming their freedom. In the first 2 years after the Civil War ends in 1865, thousands of African Americans were murdered for asserting freedom or basic rights, sometimes in attacks by white mobs in communities like Memphis and New Orleans. Congressional efforts to provide federal protection to formerly enslaved African Americans were undermined by the U.S. Supreme Court, which overturned laws that provided remedies to African Americans facing violent intimidation. That deals with the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 and the weakening of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. Okay, is about U.S. Supreme Court case is about 1880. About 1883. U.S. Supreme Court case that weakened the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. Now, in the 1870s, Northern politicians began retreating from a commitment to protect African American rights and lives, culminating in the withdrawal of troops in 1877 and response racial terror and violence directed at African Americans intensified, and legal systems quickly emerged to restore racial hierarchy. White Southerners barred African Americans from voting, creating an exploitative economic system of sharecropping and tenant farming that would keep African Americans indentured and poor for generations, and made racial segregation the law of the land. Okay, check this piece out from Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org, Equal Justice Initiative. Federal troops leave South, ending Reconstruction. That was April 24th, 1877. Okay, April 24th, 1877. We'll post the link here. Then also look at history.com. History.com has a lot of information dealing with the Civil War. History.com is the official website of the History Channel, but they have a piece here on the Compromise of 1877. The Compromise of 1877. Okay, and this ends Reconstruction. The Compromise of 1877 was an informal agreement between Southern Democrats and allies of the Republican Rutherford B. Hayes to settle the result of the 1876 presidential election and mark the end of Reconstruction. Immediately after the presidential election of 1876, it became clear that the outcome of the race hinged largely on disputed returns from Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Disputed returns from Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina, the only three states in the South with Reconstruction era Republican governments still in power. As a bipartisan congressional commission debated over the outcome early in 1877, allies of the Republican Party candidate Rutherford B. Hayes met in secret with moderate Southern Democrats in order to negotiate acceptance of Rutherford B. Hayes' election. Because what happened was neither Rutherford B. Hayes or Samuel J. Tilden, who was the Democratic candidate, neither one had enough electoral college votes to become president. Okay, so the Republican allies of Rutherford B. Hayes had a secret meeting with moderate Southern Democrats in order to negotiate the acceptance of Rutherford B. Hayes winning the election. The Democrats agreed not to block Rutherford B. Hayes' victory on the condition that Republicans withdraw all federal Union troops from the South, thus consolidating Democratic control over the region. Republicans don't want to talk about what ended Reconstruction. They want to talk about the Republicans freed the slaves. They don't want to talk about what ended Reconstruction. The Democrats agreed not to block Rutherford B. Hayes' victory on the condition that Republicans withdraw all federal troops from the South, thus consolidating Democratic control over the region. As a result of the so-called Compromise of 1877, Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina became Democratic once again. effectively bringing an end to the Reconstruction era. Okay, read the rest of this article here from history.com. Compromise of 1877. Compromise of 1877. This is what ends Reconstruction. Okay, that's at history.com. All right, be sure to register for my online course that starts up Saturday, May 1st, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. And when you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you scroll down the page, you'll see the information right here. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Click here to register and click right here to enroll. As soon as you enroll, you can start watching content, because we have content from the class that just ended. We ended up doing 10 weeks. The class that just ended. We're going to post a link here. The class is regularly $130. It's on sale $80. All the sessions are recorded. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. You can watch from around the world. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have video clips, articles, book references. So is very visual. You get to see, the articles that I show you. We get to show you the articles with the screen share. It's very visual. All right. You don't have to buy any of the books to be able to follow along in class. You can if you want to. Some of the books you may already have, but you don't have to buy any of the books. You don't have to feel obligated to do that. And you can use this for children as well. I would say it's like PG-13. Okay. I don't do a lot of cursing. We don't try to be overly graphic or things like this. I would say it's PG-13. All right. But this helps also to correct a lot of misinformation that children are learning in school or may not learn at all as well. Okay. In school also. May not learn at all also. Okay. So it's very informative, and what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you've been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So this is why our history and culture is so important. African history and culture gives us our foundation. It gives us our values, our interests, and our principles, our VIPs, our values, our interests, and our principles. And this influences our economic empowerment and political empowerment. Okay. And this helps to shape how we see ourselves and gives us our self-esteem, our self-development, and self-worth as well. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. Thanks for tuning in. With BlackBusinessT.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business. Know your numbers and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. BlackBusinessT.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com. For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al-Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners' attempts to sell their businesses for retirement fail. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consultation.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it